Welcome to the Think Factory podcast. We got one question for you. What keeps you up at night?
Welcome back to the Think Factory podcast, powered by OGC Solutions, and I'm your host today, Chris Santomassimo. I'm actually in the Phoenix, Arizona area, sitting down with Alec Faber. Alec is he's got a couple of titles for sure. He's the president and CEO of Diversified Labels Digital Printing in Chandler, Arizona, and he's also the COO of Diversified Dealer Services. So welcome to the podcast. So we actually kind of met by accident in a sense, but when we got to talking about some of the things that Alex is doing, I think it's a really cool story about the related businesses, how you ventured into the label business, what you've achieved already and what you're going to achieve in the future. So talk a little bit about Diversified as a family of companies and what they do and what you do. And then we'll talk a little bit about the label side of what you do as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so just to kind of go back and talk about how Diversified Dealer Services came about. So I started in the business about 8 years ago, in July actually. My father-in-law, Mason, he's the owner that started Diversified Dealer over 25 years ago. And he brought me on wanting to essentially create a multi-generational family business. And so he brought me on knowing I had expertise in business and finance, and wanted to basically give me an opportunity to carry forward, this company and this legacy. So they started in the automobile industry, like I said, over 25 years ago, creating products for cars, warranty, insurance, product guarantee products. So we have a couple products on that side of the company, and those are going to be things: auto body labels, microdots, window etch, and catalytic converter marking labels. And so the business basically grew over the last 25 years when they shifted from working in the auto industry in management companies to basically going out on their own and creating the products themselves, going to get their own customers and doing it themselves instead of selling it as a product through their company. So that's kind of how Diversified Dealer Services started. And what we've seen over the years is that we had a lot of costs in producing, all the different pieces of our product. Specific to the auto body labels, you've got the raw materials, you've got to print it, you've got to finish it, and then we actually have a process where we do lasering and things with serial numbers and stuff like that. So there's a couple components in the process, and we wanted to figure out how we could make that process cheaper for us. So throughout the years, we had been paying a printer probably like $100,000 a year at least to print for us, and then we would take our product and convert it. And so we saw okay, this is a huge cost for us. What can we do to bring those costs down? And so that's when we started looking into printing. So that's pretty much the next big step that we took in that side of the business, was bringing in the print in-house. For turnaround times, we'd be waiting a week or two, depending on how busy the printer was, to get our product. So when we have customers ordering and then we're waiting, but then we also still have to finish it, it just makes the process very long. And that was hard. It also just makes it so you have to plan really far ahead, So we saw that as a major problem, and we wanted to fix that. So we started off and brought printing in-house. And like I was kind of telling you earlier, we started off with a small tabletop printer, and it just had tons of problems. Our product is so sensitive to heat, the material we use, it would actually stretch. Oh, wow. And so with these auto body labels, you're working with such tight tolerances, like less than a millimeter. So any little bit of stretch was essentially causing us to have major problems. So we quickly learned okay, if we're going to do this printing thing, we can't use such a quote unquote cheap machine. We have to invest in something that's going to be more quality. So I'd say about 4 or 5 years ago, we bought our first, we would call it our big printer. It was a Mark Andy Digital 1, and it was a printer in line with finishing. And so you would have an end product on rolls for you right there. And that was a toner-based product, and that worked well for us for a little bit. It was great to be able to take a product and finish it in a day instead of waiting for 2 weeks. But obviously that had its own challenges. It wasn't actually that fast. We thought it was, but it's not really that fast.
It's a little more expensive on the toner side too. Right?
Yeah. The maintenance and the upkeep and the toner itself, it was all very expensive. And so then, along the way, we basically decided like we need to step up again, because we got some experience under our belt actually doing the printing. And we thought, hey, let's step up even more so we can have our product be as high quality as it can be. And then we can also start looking into branching into doing it for other people. So that's kind of the, as abbreviated as possible, story of how Diversified Dealer got into the printing business.
Talk about necessity being the mother of invention in a sense, in terms of your venture into that side of the house, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing. So and I saw your print room, and you got quite an impressive digital press from Epson, moving quick. You said it's how many meters an hour?
This one has a couple different speeds. You can choose the speed based on like the color density you want. The slowest is 15 meter, and then you can go to 30 meter, and then up to 50. So 50 meters is about 165 feet a minute. So obviously it's a bit off from a flexo speed, obviously, but for a digital press, it's quick. It moves pretty quick. So.
Yeah, and for what you're doing in terms of the size of the jobs that you're running, it's probably fine for you.
Yeah. At this point, because we're relatively new into the game, I mean, the jobs that we do, they're perfect for this machine. I mean, if you have a really, really big job, you'll have to change a couple rolls. But you're printing a full roll in probably like 35 to 40 minutes. Which can be hundreds of thousands of labels at a time. So it's a good volume and speed for what we do.
And it's reliable, right? And you got the ability to finish in house as well.
Correct. So we've got a standalone finishing machine. So we do it offset, so we can have two different things going at once. We kind of found that was the best setup. So again, you don't have a bottleneck of just one thing at a time.
Yeah.
So.
But one thing I think is interesting about it is you're a new entrant, completely new entrant into the market. And I know you've spent some time around the printing business over the last 5 years as you've gotten to know it, and you'll see players in the business that have been in it for multi-generations, 40 years themselves, 50 years themselves. So what's it like being a new entrant into what is, an established business, labels?
Yeah, it's interesting. We kind of talked on the phone a little bit about how, we wanted to talk about like what are the difficulties that I see and like what are the barriers and things like that. And it is interesting because I feel like there's not a ton of resources out there for people getting into the industry. It almost feels like, from what I've seen and the things that I've learned, most of the stuff I've learned have come directly from peers, people who do this, who are willing to share, which is awesome. The vendors of all the different products that we do, the raw materials and the inks and just all of that. Those have been my greatest sources of knowledge is just talking to these experts in the field. And, to be honest, when we went to the Label Expo, you meet a ton of other label converters, people who do exactly what we do. And because from what I've seen and what I know, it's very, very regional, eventually you get a big enough company and you can be across the country and then it's a bit of a different story. But most of the companies that are small to mid-size it's extremely regional. So people are willing to share. And they've been very nice and very, like I said, very willing to talk and answer any questions. I had multiple owners of different label converters giving me their info and say, if you ever have questions, just, reach out and I'm happy to help. And it's just awesome. So, it's a huge learning curve. It's something, we're obviously trying to do the best we can as we go, but it's a learning experience. You may have a job that you've done aspects of it, but maybe there's a piece that's new. And so each time is kind of a learning curve, but most of our customers are really willing to work with us. And if there's ever an issue, we'll fix it and make sure they get what they need, and then we're good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's really one of the really nice things about the printing business. in general is that there's a lot of sharing that goes on, even among parties that might be competitors in some ways. You know, they help each other work out the kinks in a job, or talk about how to attack a unique job.
Yeah.
You know, and jobs get more unique as media changes. You know, your label stock is going to change potentially over time, or you're venturing into new areas. So, and there's a lot of operators that really enjoy that process of figuring out the problems and, you know, making something happen.
Yeah.
So if you like that sharing, you definitely got into the right business for it, from what I can see.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that fully. Like I said, everybody's been very willing to share, and even people like at a bigger company. You know, I've talked to other converters, and they've said if there's ever stuff that we can't handle because maybe for us the jobs are too, quote unquote, too small, they're still a good sized job, but maybe they're focused on dealing with massive jobs, they're willing to send that my way because it's just something that they don't want to deal with. So again, it's cool. Yeah, it's really awesome.
So, and you've already started to work for some other customers outside your central product area as well, which is interesting. So, how'd you start that process?
So to be honest, most of it was getting a website up and running, SEO, just kind of the basic stuff, but we really didn't do too much beyond some basic, ads and things like that. Personal, we had some connections that we were able to kind of touch on to start and get a couple customers, but most of them have come to us direct through like web search. We've had a couple people where I think maybe one or two of our bigger customers were actually like referrals from someone else, which I think again is probably the best.
That's the best kind of new client.
It's the best kind of new client. Yeah, you're already getting a stamp of approval from someone else. So a bit of this and a bit of that. We're trying to shift into the outreach, at this point now, since we're kind of getting a handle on things. So going forward, it's going to be more outreach and networking and going to these events and expos and things that we've been talking about. So
what do you want your potential customers or even your existing customers to know about why Diversified as opposed to a competitor?
Yeah, so I find that what sets us apart is, again, we're a family-owned and operated business. We're a small business here, and our whole mantra, if you will, is going to be we want to make sure that it's a win-win for everybody. Kind of like we were talking about, it just feels like good business. If it's a win for somebody else and it's a win for you, then it's a good business relationship. So for us, I really want to make sure that the people I'm helping and doing their products for, I want to be able to save them money if possible, give them the same quality product or better, than they're used to. And I want to be able to do it faster than everyone else.
That's the trifecta, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's the trifecta. I mean, from what I've seen and things that I know, the industry standard for turnaround time on a lot of these larger companies is 7 to 10 business days. And that's a long time, especially in the manufacturing capacity. If you have to sit around and wait for your product for 2 weeks, that puts kinks in what you're doing. So by being able to offer something to where we can turn it around within just a few days, that's honestly been the biggest thing that we've seen that people like. So yeah, I want to continue to have the focus of like being able to always push out jobs as efficiently and quickly as possible.
Without than your competitors.
Yeah, and without sacrificing quality, and if I can save them money along the way too, then that's good for everyone. So,
money is always central to a buying decision, I think. But in the kind of areas that you're focused on, I think it's probably number 3 in that trifecta. It's quality and reliability in terms of the turnaround time. So if you accomplish those things, the price is an easier discussion, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I also find that, I think people like having a relationship with someone too. And so when you work with another small business, you actually get to talk to the people directly, dealing with all those things. And so I find that, again, as a smaller company, we're able to give a very personal feel to it. Like I want to see you succeed, and I have a hand. I feel responsible in having a hand in doing that. So
no doubt.
Yeah, I like having the personal aspect of it as well.
Oh, where you're able to walk down the hall and fix an issue or tackle an issue, as opposed to somebody who's calling a call center that's got to be routed back. I mean, you know how that goes. Right. Yeah, for sure. And I think you're right to focus on the relationship, because that's where all the success comes from, is long-standing relationships with trusted partners, right? So
Exactly.
that's apparently what you have. If you could successfully do the kind of printing that you've done already in a very niche area, a very specialized area, the other stuff is going to come a little bit easier, I think. Right?
Yeah, I'd like to think so.
What's your long-term plan, do you think?
Long-term plan, yeah, that one's interesting. So, like I said, my father-in-law, Mason, he's always kind of wanted to have a multi-generational business. And for me, I just love, I love what I do because I love every day being different. I love having my hand in every aspect of the business. And so for me, I think I would kind of say the same thing. I would love to be able to grow this thing as big as I reasonably can, in a way that doesn't, sacrifice all the things we just talked about. Like I'm not a big fan of like super corporate structure. Like, if it gets too rigid and cold, then I feel like you start losing touch with your employees and then your customers, and then it just feels like a snowball.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to be able, my goal is, I would love to be able to build this thing as big as I can. I'd love to be able to service as many people as possible, but I just want to make sure that I don't ever sacrifice quality or that personal touch or anything like that along the way.
Not to make it about our firm, but that's how our firm operates too. We always want to be the specialty firm or the boutique firm, because I think there's something special with that. Again, going back to the relationships that you have with your customers, and you have to be really careful not to lose that, no matter how big you get or how busy you get.
Right.
For sure.
Right.
Because that takes away your magic, right?
It does.
Or your distinction
Yeah.
from other companies, for sure.
Yeah.
I can tell you too, just being around the business long enough, in that the bigger some of the big guys get, the more the dissatisfaction grows, and I think there's just a natural tendency to really gravitate toward a business like yours for that reason.
Right. And then you have this cycle of and then you have these up and coming companies, and then they grow too big, and then ultimately the same thing happens a lot. So yeah, I'd like to, like I said, I'd like to be able to try to not have that happen.
Sounds like you're off on a great path already, so.
I like to think so. It's going. It's new. It's fresh. It's exciting to have that drive to want to grow and see these new things happen. So,
and to have the opportunity at the end of the day. So congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
How can folks get in touch with you?
Yeah. So we can always go online to our website, which is, I believe, diversifiedlabelsaz.com. AZ for Arizona. You feel free to shoot us an email. A phone call works too. We're pretty old school in that capacity. So I believe we have a form submission on our site you can do like a general inquiry, and we can always reach out from there. But email or phone. I tried to stay away a bit from the social media, just in the aspect of Instagram and Facebook, because again, I find in certain industries, those types of things don't really seem as relevant. So for now, we're kind of just to the basics.
Yeah.
Website and phone. Yeah.
Phone. Wow.
Phone. I love talking to people on the phone. I prefer it.
That's amazing. So, and don't forget the dealer side, diversifieddealer.com and theftmark.com as well.
Yeah.
So, well, thanks a lot for sharing today. Love the story, and wish you continued success.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming by.
So this has been Alec Faber here in Chandler, Arizona, sitting with me, Chris Santomassimo from the Think Factory podcast. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time.